It is just amazing how we have blown retirement planning since 1974.
You know, I would take the other side, Tom.
Please.
I would say that the system is evolving, and, you know, if you look at the best performing defined contribution plans as an example, they're a really terrific vehicle for people to save for retirement.
Sunshine and roses for those thinking about retirement this day. Despite some minor issues, the American economy is getting better. Things are looking up, and you should be thrilled that there are few problems, if any, with any thoughts of kicking back and allowing your golden years to kick in. Remain calm, all is well. Now that we have dispensed with the flowers, we unfortunately have to dig into the weeds, because this current recovery is indeed working against you and all those wonderful thoughts. Okay. Welcome back to MidPoint. Veteran economist and chairman of the Society to Advance Financial Education, Steve Beaman, who's going to try and put a smile back on our face after all that. Steve, I'll tell you, you read that and you see these notes where it says America's recovery is working against people trying to retire, and that's where you want to throw up your hands and go, what's next?
Well, I'm not real big on those headlines, Ed, and thanks for
Good.
having me as always.
Always.
You know, the reality is the Americans in general lost a great deal of their net worth when the real estate bubble popped in 2008 and 2009. We all felt it. We all see it. But in the last years, although real estate has been slow to come back, it is coming back. And for those that are, let's say, 50, 55 years old, the reality is that real estate value will likely come back and won't affect them. Now, with that said, all is not roses. The American consumer has not been much of a saver over the last 20 years, and that's going to hurt these people when they hit the golden years.
Well, isn't that basically because a lot of people never saw the reason to save? Because for so many years, and I guess in generations, we always thought there's Social Security, there's savings, there's my house, there's my car, there's so many of these things that I actually have moving forward. But then the housing bubble, but there had to be more than just the housing bubble that kind of burst that whole bubble, right?
Well, there's a lot, and this goes to the core of why this society was built. In fact, if you go back to 1974-75, we had the implementation of the ERISA programs, which some have referred to as every ridiculous idea since Adam. But we'll leave that for another day. But that changed American retirement from the defined benefit plan to the defined contribution plans, the 401k world. Well, the problem with that is the Americans that got those plans weren't necessarily educated in what they needed to know about how to manage those plans. So they haven't performed as well. And to your point, people rely on things that may not be there, so they're not saving the kind of independent funds they need to save.
What were we not told then that would have been good for our education at that point getting to today?
Well, I think investors in 401ks should have been told how mutual funds work, for example, how mutual fund expenses work. I think they should have been educated on the value of an index fund if you're not going to actively manage your programs. And I think if we had done that, a lot of people would be a lot better off today. There's a great deal of evidence that those who did properly manage their 401ks have thrived and prospered and have net worths well above that $500,000 mark, which is kind of the minimum to pull off a good retirement.
Aren't we getting to the point now, and I guess this has been a discussion for many years, where it says Americans are living longer, we're working longer, and now there's some articles that I see and some experts who say, well, why not work until 67 years of age now in order to make up for what you lost in the bubble? Is that logical?
Well, actually it is. If you go back to the whole concept of retirement, this is a relatively 20th century phenomena. It was created officially, let's call it, in the 30s and 40s with an age of 65 years old, because that was an average person's life expectancy. Well, today we're living to 80, 90 years old. So it does make some sense to boost up that age in our productive life to 67. I would argue even for those coming into the retirement systems today that probably 70 to 72 is a reasonable amount. We shouldn't really plan to live the last third of our life on accrued wealth unless we've done really well.
But about 30 seconds and then we'll take a break, come back, do more. Isn't it, though, getting to 70 difficult because there's a lot of places that don't hire people even over the age of 55?
Well, that's a structural change in the economy. And I think what you'll see over time here is the internet changing how people work, and the millennials coming into the system know how to work in that environment. And they're the ones who will have to do that.
All right, I know you've got some ideas on modernizing the economy, at least modernizing the notion of retirement. We'll get to that in a moment. Stand by. Second shot with Steve Beaman right after the break. And at 51 minutes after the hour, in Telling It Like It Is, a very different way to mark Veterans Day. Many people say we celebrate Veterans Day, but there's at least one who says that's the wrong word to use. And then again, it's not always about war. Many times it's about coming home. That, again, is my commentary and telling it like it is. That's coming up. So's much more, right here on the fastest 3 hours in news, MidPoint. We will continue.